Are you listening?
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Yes, it is good to be back. Welcome to 2018. This video is long overdue. I mean, the recipe has been recorded for probably about 2-3 months now, and I'm just getting around to filming an intro for it, but it's still relevant because it's in the new year, and I tell you why. In my family, when I was growing up, there was a tradition that we had in our house that the first thing that you're supposed to eat in the new year is beans. Like, as soon as you enter the new year, no gum, no candy. The first thing that should enter your mouth, as in chewing, swallowing food, should be beans. And it has to do with, I think, it has to do with being fruitful in the new year, or being plentiful in the new year. You know, beans come in plenty, I guess. And that's the best I can explain it, but that's the ritual that we had in our household, and we still do. Sorry guys, I'm a little sick. Not even a little bit. I am actually like, my enemy is sick. So I'm just moving through with this intro. Some variation of beans, either moi moi, akara, or regular like stewed beans. And usually I cook it ahead of time so that when I come home, it's already ready. This year was a different story. I had so many other things going on before church, and church was on a Sunday again, and my baby was teething, so that didn't get done. But I lucked out because we had cooked beans the week before, so we still had a little bit in the fridge, and I just nipped it in the microwave, and that was the first thing I ate in the new year. When we're entering 2019, I will be a little bit more prepared by God's grace, so look out for that. Anyway, on to this recipe. As the title says, you will learn how to make the fluffiest akara ever in your life, and this is rivaling the roadside. If you've ever had roadside akara in Nigeria, oh my gosh, it's not the most sanitary depending on where you get it, but it is the bomb.com, right? I'm going to show you how to do that. Follow everything step by step. You will have bomb akara. And if you're making it for the first time and you mess up, don't worry, there's always the next time. Just hit rewind on the video and then try it again. Beans are plentiful. Remember, you can buy a big old bag of beans for less than $5. Let's get into the video. I'm glad you're sticking with me for year 2018, and welcome to my first video of the year. Yay! Alright guys, jumping right into the video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about step 1, which was done behind the scenes. I started with 2 cups of beans. In my house, we use an equal parts honey beans and brown beans, which can be found at your local African or Caribbean market store. If you don't have access to this variety, you can always go ahead and use the black-eyed peas. The only difference is that you will have to soak it for much longer. Once they've expanded to twice their size, you can begin peeling them or removing the brown skin. So if you start out with 2 cups of dry beans, you should have 4 cups of soaked, washed, and peeled beans. Okay guys, now we're moving our beans on to step 2, which is the actual blending. By now, the 2 cups of beans have soaked and swelled to about 4 cups. When it's time to blend, add a little to your blender at a time. Here I started with about a cup. I'm using a half cup to measure, that's why you see me pour twice. We're starting small because we want to add as little water as possible. When you start blending, use a spoon or something to move the beans around if they get stuck. As you can see here, I am using chopsticks. I don't know why, but that's the first thing I reached for, so I stuck with it. If your beans continue to get stuck, depending on the blender you have, add about a tablespoon of water at a time to assist. Once you have movement, you can add more beans until you have a thick paste, as you don't want to overwater your mixture. As I'm blending, this is the type of consistency I have. It might look a little watery now, but the reason for that is because I'm still going to add more beans to it later. Once you have enough movement, you can go ahead and add your rodo, aka Scotch bonnet, aka that spicy stuff. My 2 cents here, some cooks will say add your spices or onion while you're blending, but those people are leading you astray. All you want in this blender are the beans, pepper, and a small amount of water. Done blending, and this is the consistency that I have. It's super thick. I'm still gonna add water to this mixture, but this is the best way to start out because you can always add more water. You can't take it out. I allowed my blended mixture additional minutes to rest and soak up any additional water by slicing my onions. Please don't laugh at this skill of mine. I was definitely working harder and not smarter. You also want to use the additional time to prepare your seasonings. Here I'm using Maggi, curry, additional cayenne pepper because I'm African, and thyme. At this point, less is more. Notice I didn't add any salt yet. So before we get into step 3, which is mixing, I wanted to show you what my batter looked like after resting. I found it to be a bit dry, so I still ended up adding water here. So this is Akara key number 2. You have to mix, mix, mix. A hand mixer was one of the best investments that I made last year, and this actually sped the process up. Mix the batter until it's twice the volume. Thank God for technology because though I'm using a hand mixer, it still took me 10 minutes to get there. It's okay if you don't have an electric mixer. These results can still be achieved by hand. It'll just take a little bit longer and a little more power to get there. You're headed in the right direction when your batter becomes smoother and starts to increase in volume. With the hand mixer, I'm still going until I get soft peaks, which you can see here. Once you get to this point, you can start heating up your oil on low heat. I'm using vegetable oil here with just a little bit of palm oil to give it that local flavor. Behind the scenes while the oil was heating up, I continued mixing until I got to this point, which is about 3 times the volume I started with. This is probably 2 steps away from stiff peaks. Now it's time to add your other ingredients. Take your seasoning and your chopped onions and fold them in. You work so hard to get all this air into it, you don't want to lose it by over mixing. Just fold until you have everything combined. Again, notice I did not add the salt yet. So I like to fry in batches, particularly when I'm frying a good amount of akara or anything that I'm frying. I take a portion, maybe 2 serving spoonfuls into a smaller bowl, and here is where I'm going to add the salt. This is probably the second most important key about akara. All that amazing air you incorporated into your mixture is also being held by the water. Adding salt will cause the water to separate from the beans and your akara will be flat, soggy, and God forbid, oily. Ew. This is why we waited until the very last minute before adding the salt, so you should be ready to fry at this point. The reason why I add salt 1 batch at a time is because if I were to add it to the entire bowl, by the time I get halfway into the frying process, the rest of the batter would have already gone flat. Another reason why I like working in small batches is because it gives me the opportunity to play with different batter consistencies and also different flavors. So I can add more pepper to one, or more salt, or more crayfish. This is also very good if you have family members that have different tastes. So if one person can't handle spicy food or another person has a shellfish allergy, you can cook them separately without too much effort. If your oil is too hot, the akara will not cook through before the outside starts to burn. Too cool and the akara will be oily. When you drop the batter in the hot oil, it should start to sink, then puff up and float to the top. This is what will tell you that your balls will be fluffy on the inside and crispy on the outside. It's also a great indicator that the oil is at the right temperature. Cook one side and flip when you start to see the edges turn golden. I'm a weirdo, so I like my akara on the darker side, and I always reserve that for the last batch. It's okay if you flip too early as long as it stays in the oil. You can also use the batch method to play around with consistencies. So in one of the last batches, I added a little bit more water. Just note that the more water you add, the flatter it'll be. When you're done, serve with bread, gari, pop, or cereal. This is a breakfast food, but in our house, it goes at any time. I actually cook this for dinner. Pop open an ice cold malt as your reward for making this bomb local delicacy. Okay guys, thank you for joining me on this recipe ride today. I hope you have taken all the notes that you need to take. You're about to go out and buy your ingredients, but before you do that, make sure you subscribe to my channel or else you're gonna miss the next recipe, and you don't want to do that. It might actually be a DIY, but who knows? You don't want to miss the next video regardless. So make sure you subscribe. I don't know where it is on the screen, but subscribe. You can also hit the bell for notifications for whenever I upload videos, however they may come. And you can follow me on social media. I am on Instagram at MikkiSoXtra. I'm on Twitter at MikkiSoXtra blog, and I am also on Snapchat, MikkiSoXtra. You can also check out my website, my blog, www.MikkiSoXtra.com, and I will see you there. Make sure you say hi in the comments too, before I forget. Make sure you tag me in a picture if you decide to do this recipe on your own, and I wish you a happy, prosperous, fruitful 2018. Bye.